Today we are going to talk about arcade idle games. I believe that it's the beginning. It's the beginning of a new era, and I'm going to explain why I believe that way in this solo talk. But before, let me talk about myself real quick. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Tiplay Studio, one of the biggest mobile game development studios in the world. We have produced hyper casual games in the past, but now we are actually doing different genres as well. We have 6 different studios for 6 different game genres, and we also run often an accelerator program with Rolik in order to accelerate the startups that are in mobile games to accelerate their growth and release games. So far, we released 4 games, 2 from Tiplay Studio, 2 from Ofon, and we hope to launch more games. And some of them are gonna be in the arcade idle genre. So let me get started. What is arcade idle? First things first, these are games that are something between idle and hyper casual. So the gameplay looks like hyper casual, but the core mechanics is more like idle games. And Dream Restaurant from Rolik is a good example. In this game, what you do is, as you can understand from the screen, that there are customers hungry, they need to eat sandwiches or hamburgers, etc., and you get from kitchen all these orders and you deliver them, you serve them, and you collect money, and therefore you improve your restaurant and you maybe open new branches, etc., so forth, so on. So the gameplay is hyper casual. It looks like hyper casual, but the core mechanics is actually focused towards long-term retention, and also it doesn't require too much time, meaning that the main, in my opinion, feature of hyper, or the main advantage of hyper casual games is the fact that it can fill 2 minutes or 20 minutes depending on your mood, depending on where you are, what you're doing, etc. So it can be played in a very short amount of time. Arcade idle is similar, however it requires just slightly more time, but you can play 2 minutes today, 10 minutes tomorrow, 20 minutes the day after that, so forth, so on, so that it still fills the gaps. However, now you can chase a long-term goal, and that's the core of arcade idle. Now, there are differences between arcade idle and hyper casual. For example, hyper casual, I wrote easier user acquisition, meaning lower CPI. Arcade idle is still good in terms of a CPI, meaning that the CPIs are not too high. However, it's slightly higher. We're going to talk about the standards in detail in a minute. But the retention is definitely higher in arcade idle, and the playtime, obviously, the average playtime per daily active user is way higher in arcade idle. Even though you can play 2 minutes today, 5 minutes tomorrow, 10 minutes the day after, people typically play almost half an hour a day, to be honest with you. And we're going to talk about it in more detail in a minute. But first, let's frame the opportunity. What is the opportunity? The most important thing about this opportunity is that the entry barrier is really low. It offers low barrier to entry, meaning that there are not many players. There are not many competitors. In fact, I think there are more, like about 50 arcade idle games today in the market. At least that's what we shortlisted. And that actually tells something. It is the fact that it's not like hyper casual. Hyper casual is not very easy to enter right now. Like it was like that a few years back, but now it's it offers like fierce competition. If you want to be successful in hyper casual, you have to you have to grind, you have to work hard, and you have to get back up after falling, etc. It's not like that in arcade idol now. Tomorrow it can be different. No big hit yet, meaning that I don't know any games that reach let's say 100 million downloads. So no mega hit, nothing like that. So it offers an opportunity as well. You can be that guy who releases the next mega hit or the first mega hit in arcade idol. And another view of the opportunity is the fact that the audience is just right. What do I mean by that? um when hyper casual rose, in hindsight it was obvious that it was going to rise. Why? Because you know there were hundreds of millions of maybe billions of smartphones around the globe, and they were able to offer games to people who were not playing games, and that just created a perfect product market fit, especially like after games like Flappy Bird, etc. These smaller uh, games, or I don't want to say smaller, but simpler games gain momentum. Now, a very similar thing is happening because now hundreds of millions of people, maybe billions of people played hyper casual games, and they now know what a hyper casual game is. So they're familiar with it. So you can transform some of those users into something that is a little more sophisticated. It's not like midcore. It doesn't require a huge time dedication or energy dedication. Slightly more. So the audience is just I believe waiting for it. If you offer them the right game with the right aesthetics, with the right visuals, with the right hypnotizing feeling, I think the ROI, return on investment, is huge. So let's talk about the core features of arcade idle games. The first one in my mind is the easy and attractive gameplay. Now, I want to underline easy and attractive because these are two different things. Easy means, as the name implies, that it's not require an arm and a leg to understand the core gameplay, or it's just almost intuitive, almost like played as a reflex, right? It should be like that. For example, if we go back to my example, the first example of arcade idol dream restaurant, I mean, just by looking at this picture, you understand what's going on. It's not even a video. It's a picture, and I now feel like most people that are aged between 7 and 70 can understand this game. So it should be like that. Um, Attractive meaning the game needs to have visuals that very similar to hyper casual, that are um, attracting people. In other words, it should not confuse people. It should not look bad. It should not look sophisticated. It should not look old. It should not look weird. It should look cool, slick. It should look simple. And simple is hard. Like, to create something simple is actually not very easy. The second core feature is simple yet progressive design. Now, this is about the architecture of the game, because as I explained earlier, the game should focus on long-term retention, meaning that we are talking about having, day 7 retention, even day 30 retention, and maybe even longer play times and longer retention durations. So you should always highlight how to, you know, improve something, how to get better in our status in the game, how to gain something. It could be an asset, it could be a badge, it could be something that you can stack. However, it should be very, very simple. Similar to the visuals of it, the architecture needs to be simple, yet progressive, so that you evolve and it's just fun to, make some progress. And the third core feature, in my opinion, is the story. So why are we doing all this? Now, what's the meaning? What's gonna happen if I reach, a milestone? What's gonna happen when I fail? Why it's gonna happen? That kind of things are, more important in arcade idle than it is in hyper casual. And this has to do with the theme of the game. So, for example, a dream restaurant is obviously, a restaurant game, and you can realize what the story is. You're gonna, basically create a huge empire of restaurants. You're gonna add new franchises, etc., etc. So that's engaging. That game actually borrowed those meta game items from, or features from, bigger games in codes such as simulation games, but yet it works because it's engaging. So we have to come up with something, a theme, a meaning, a goal that is definitely engaging. Now let's talk about something more tangible. I always like to talk about measurable things. So KPIs are typically retention, CPI, and playtime. I just put day one retention, but we also have day 7, day 30, and they're not like halving at each day. No, it's not gonna go like that. I would be if I have. By the way, these are very ambitious metrics, but I believe they should be. We should always have ambitious milestones in front of us. But if I'm having day one retention of 50%, I'm expecting a day 7 retention of 20% at least, so that I consider this game successful. CPI nowadays is a huge problem after especially iOS 14 um, weirdness, and $1 and below is amazing. But if you can have a little higher than this, that's also cool, depending on the retention and playtime, obviously. And the playtime should be 30 minutes and above, because if you are combining two different things and making a new genre such as hyper casual and idle, you have to get the best of the best. So we are basically borrowing the lower CPI parts of hyper casual game industry, and higher retention and higher playtime aspects of the idle world. So 30 minutes is a really, really good target. So in our gameplay, what should we have? Definitely, what are the must-haves? And first things first, hypnotizing animations and feel has to be there. They have to be there. However, most people kind of misunderstand this time. It's not just talking about a specific movement or animation. It's a combination of it. In other words, for example, in this game, I chose the miner that we see. The guy is, basically breaking blocks, as you can see, and is in the name of the game, block breaker miner. And then they he collects all those blocks and exchanges them, or gives them in exchange of money, and basically he is stacking money. And The animations are great and everything, but it's hypnotizing to do that repeatedly. And the whole thing, like altogether, hypnotizes you. So when you play the game, you can download it from App Store. You'll see that you're doing the same thing again and again. The individual animations are good, effects are good, particle effects, etc. They're all great, but the actual thing that you keep doing, like you're going back, exchange, come back, break more blocks, go back, buy something, improve your capacity, etc. So there are bottlenecks to fight in every corner, and you're optimizing your flow. That is hypnotizing. That's what I'm talking about. The second must have, and I kind of gave you a hint about it, is the stacking or collecting or improving, or whatever you call it, doesn't matter. It's the progress feel that you have during the game, because you're constantly, you know, getting more of something. It could be money, it could be diamonds, it could be a rank, it could be like a place. You can invade like planets one after another. That's up to you. Sky's the limit, but you should be doing some sort of stacking, some sort of collecting. And the final must have in my mind is the perceived metagame depth. Now let me define metagame first. In my vocabulary, metagame means everything that has to do with the game's progress. That could be assets that are sold in the store. That could be, the coins you gain. That could be other assets that has to do with the game economy, such as like hard currency. So anything that makes the game more, how should I put it? Makes the game deeper in a sense is called metagame in my vocabulary, in my lexicon. Now, the perceived metagame depth means that once a user starts like playing this arcade idle game, they should feel, they should think that this game is deep and it's going to get deeper as they go in. So they should not only feel that, okay, this is a sophisticated game yet simple, they should start believing that the more they play the game, the more fun they'll have, or the more satisfaction they'll have, because they're gonna get something they don't even know right now. That's a hard thing to explain. I'll be honest with you, but it's almost like a positive feedback loop on depth of the game. The more they get in, the more complicated or the more structural it gets, and you create a sense of it. So that's crucial. Let me talk about monetization real quick. Hyper casual monetization channels are also valid, such as interstitial banners, reward videos, etc. In-app purchase, obviously. You can try subscriptions as well. There might be some other monetization channels I failed to mention. But if the game is good, it's gonna make money. I always look at it that way. The audience is very interesting because it's a broad range of people we're talking about, from 7 to 70, female, male, all geographies. However, I believe there are two kinds of people to focus on. Number one, hyper casual players. Now you can actually have someone play a game first time in their life, and that could be an arcade idle game. That's okay. I believe in that. However, you can acquire hyper casual players easier because they already know what hyper casual is. They already played it. They already had fun. So you offer some features of hyper casual, so it's an easy adapt. It's, in other words, it's the low hanging fruit. But the other part of people that kind of makes me more excited, and that is the hyper casual players who are looking for something slightly more sophisticated, and they don't want to play a mid-core game. They don't want to play a simulation game. They don't even want to play an idle game, but they want something slightly more sophisticated. And they may not know about this. They may not know the fact they want this, but we do, or we feel, or we believe in that. So we should double down on it. And this has to do with a lot of technical things, including cross marketing, and targeting, etc. But I think it should be in the DNA of development and design. Like, you should think about your audience when you're planning the structure, planning to details of your arcade idle game. And finally, this new era is gonna bring opportunities, as we discussed. So what should we do? Like, what are the things that you can do right now? And I think that's the most important part of my slide, because ideas are good, but they're everywhere, and they don't mean anything unless you actually convert them into action. So let's shapeshift everything we taught into something tangible, and let those 3 steps be these things I'm about to explain in detail. 1, you should start testing arcade idle prototypes. And it's not hard. It's not easy either. But as I said, the audience is ripe. The market is not very competitive at this point. So if not now, when? So let's start, developing and testing prototypes, and do it today. Let's start today. Number 2, you should think about the audience. What do they do? Where do they go? Where do they download? How do they download their games they play? Or do they download games? What does that mean? Etc. 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 And put that in front of you at all times when you're designing, developing, your game. And number 3, get your foot in the door, meaning that start carrying yourself as an arcade idle developer. Start carrying yourself as the future guru of it. Why not? Because if you're gonna be that guy, it's gonna happen because you have that in your mind. And the best way to do it is to just get started. Talk to publishers, talk to investors, talk to accelerator programs, talk to everybody, talk to influencers, and make some progress, do something tangible, get a measurable milestone done, put a check mark next to it, and get started. Because I feel like we are going to have something very similar to hyper casual within this new genre. So having said that, guys, let me tell you a little bit about our company, and especially Ofon. Tiplay Studio, as I said, we have multiple studios doing multiple genres, and one of them is Arcade Idle. We have 2 Arcade Idle games in our production line. So if you're interested in Arcade Idle games and you wanna work in a studio that does them, Tiplay does that, so that And if you're an entrepreneur, gaming entrepreneur who wants to get started in Arcade Idle or any other genre, including hyper casual, is the area of your interest, please consider applying to Ofon, which is one of the biggest mobile game development systems in the world, ecosystems in the world. And we do accept applications at this time, and we are going to be growing even faster in 2022. So please go to ofon.gs and apply. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to me, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions.
All right, so we have some time for questions. The first one, arcade idle games like Beekeeper, Moon Pioneer, and Well Men seem very niche, not based around mass market concepts. Any idea why?
Yeah, very interesting question. Moon Pioneer is a great game. I really love it. Even though one of our competitors published it, I would have to give it to them that they did a great job, especially in terms of aesthetics and the general feel, that general the hypnotizing feel, as I mentioned in the pitch. I think it's because this is a new genre, and somehow the developers feel like they have to, present it as is. In other words, they have to make sure that, hey, this is not a typical, game that you're familiar with, or this is not hyper casual. This is something new, and we have to explain that in about like 3-4 seconds with videos to the potential users. And one of the ways to do that is using a unique art style like the Moon Pioneer did, or the Dream Restaurant did, or other games did. But I think it's because they want to package their game as a new thing. That's maybe not true, but that's my take on it.
Okay, thank you. Actually, we
Yes.
have much more questions, but I think it's time to move forward. So
Okay.
I'd like to thank you, Umut, one more time for the previous speech and for this speech. So,
Thank you.
this is a conference. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, for not answering the questions, but you can always email me or send me a message on LinkedIn. I would be my best to answer them all. Cheers, guys.
Or you can answer them in public chat, which is
Oh,
still
yeah?
active. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'll do that right now.
In Pine. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You're
Cheers.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.